All right, welcome to ConverStayShuns. My name is Devin Boyd, aka Lyrical Instrumentalist, and I have two guests today. First guest I have
Rosalind George,
and then I also have
Jay DaWarlock.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring you both on to the show to have this conversation again about something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, because I believe people get too defensive and don't really just want to be, communicate, in a positive fashion. But like I always like to start off, how has y'all day been going?
Today has been great. Lovely. How about you?
I mean, it was good. I'm not even gonna lie. I had to go to work, but other than that, it was good. It was a smooth day today. I'm like I said on the other one last week. I'm getting to work from home again, so it's just a blessing because I'm able to like catch back up on stuff and because like I said, my work computer is in the same room as like my work computer. So I'm just like right in the same element all the time, and I'm able to just constantly keep working on, my 9 to 5 work, and then like during breaks and lunches, I can just spin around to my other computer and work on music or videos or whatever I need to do. So it makes it just so much easier. I'm catching up on a lot of stuff fast.
Absolutely.
So I'm loving it.
You should. That is a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
That's clear.
And I get Fridays and Saturdays off right now. And I ain't had like a Friday or a Saturday off in like years. So I'm just enjoying all of it.
Well, you should. You should. You work hard. Work hard for the money.
I do. Sometimes I work hard for the money and I still ain't got none.
It'll be greater later, Devin.
Right. How was your day?
It was all right. Busy day. My girlfriend just went back to work, and so it's an adjustment for the whole house. So, sleep patterns off, routines off, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it's a good kind of busy.
That's right.
Yeah.
I get that.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Good to meet you. Good to meet you.
Same.
Yes. Yeah, I actually kind of can't believe I talk about that.
You're right. Let's talk about that after.
Right. Well, cool. Like I said, you and I, Roz, we talked earlier. I know you said you have some different things coming up here in the future. I know we said we're not going to speak on specifically, but I know you said you have, I guess, a brand. Is that right?
Yes, it's called Meeting of the Minds. I started it in 2012. It's in a forum setting, and I empower women. We have frank discussions, talk about unclear issues so that we can get better in our community, because, the woman is the backbone. We raise the children and men provide.
Mm-hmm.
So it is vitally important that we start to bring to the table some of these unclear issues so that we can start a healing process here, because there's a lot of broken women in our community, and we need to get that fixed. Before we do anything, we need to get that fixed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With that, do you include males as well? Yes,
males are certainly invited and encouraged, as a matter of fact, because we're a unit.
Right.
We're not separate. We're together. And the more we participate with each other to get an understanding of who we are, I think that we'll also heal those relationships as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Don't say what I say.
Sorry.
But yes, definitely. That's what it's about, is that balance. So you need something from both sides. And so it's definitely better when we work together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that it's the design to separate us. So there's some secrets going on, and there really shouldn't be secrets between us, because we're a tribe. We're together. How can you know what your left hand is doing if you don't know what the right hand is doing?
Right.
So we really need to get better at that particular space. And that's what my brand is designed to do, is to bridge that gap between the black woman and the black man.
Yeah.
You almost said like the whole like creed of ConverStayShuns, to bridge the gap. That's a word I always use. And like I said, to be able to have conversations on, like I said, this kind of platform, so people can grow and move forward and move past things. Because I feel like as a peoples, we're so stuck in the past. So the past, like negative things. Sometimes we don't like to harp on the past or the positive, but we can. The negative always stays with us. So it's like, yeah, this is dope. Yeah, I like that because we all need to grow.
Yeah, we do. And the one thing that unfortunately our culture, we don't like to tell the truth.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are hurting, we won't tell the truth about our hurt. You know, we'll sweep it under the rug, and our famous word is, "I'm all right," but it's really not. You know, so how can you really seek for something when you're not honest about it?
That's like people say, it is what it is, but it's really what you make it.
Right.
And I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that. I mean, that's one of my one of the things that I hate the most. It is what it is. It's not. It's not. It is what it is. You're hurting.
Right.
And excuse me, but you fucked up.
Yeah.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Right.
You know, but you won't say that. You'll hide behind that. It is what it is. Really.
Right. And
I can see the self-destruction.
Exactly.
I'm watching it. You know, so you're not fooling anybody but yourself.
That saying, it is what it is. That saying, I'm settling.
I was gonna say that, settling.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Absolutely.
Signing
We do
a contract.
a lot of that.
Yeah.
We do a lot of that too, unfortunately. You know, because they're really, you know, we're kind of lacking positive reinforcement in our community. You know, a lot of people have dumbed down. You know, they've accepted the status quo as their norm.
Right.
You know, I don't think that that's fair to the generations that's coming behind us, because they're watching. They're watching us. You know, they are watching, and we have a moral obligation to them. You know, to empower them, to show them that what the possibilities are. It is possible. I don't care what walk of life you come from. I don't care what has happened in your past. It is possible.
Right. Why would you see what you've seen and know what you know and not pass it on, but instead pass on all the bad habits, all the same lies, and you know that's what it is. You lived it, you found it out, and because of tradition or whatever, you know, whatever else, that kind of goes into what we're about to talk about. But yeah, whatever else, you'll keep on pushing that lie, that holding those secrets, instead of saying, okay, this is what it really was, this is how we move forward.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. And we need more people that's willing. You know, it's not enough of us that's willing to get in the fire.
Okay.
Because if you're talking that language and it's not the norm of the masses, you're going to criticism and critique. And a lot of people do not like that. They have to be liked. They have to be.
They have to be liked, right? They have to be liked and followed and shared.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
The creed of social media right now.
Oh, right.
In the
Exactly.
name of like, follow, share.
Right, like, follow, share. So yeah, y'all both said, you know, talked about traditions and, you know, the different walks of life and different paths. So what is both of your, I guess, in relation to the topic, your past, I guess, or your path and how you came up?
I came up traditional Baptist. That's the core foundation as far as religion. Today, I don't practice religion at all. I am completely moved away from the traditional church going and worship that I knew it as a child. And I don't think that I'll ever go back to that, because it's really damaging because of those traditions. You know, a lot of it is set on lies and deception. You know, I just, at this place, you know, like you said, when you learn better, you do better. And I've learned better. So that form of worship doesn't work for me today. So I seek God on my own terms, whatever that may be for me, you know.
I can see that. And you? Well, we didn't really go to church growing up, but I did go to Catholic school. And I feel like this matters. It was an all-black Catholic school, so, you know, we make up our own rules, which was good, both good and bad, you know what I mean? But I was always made to understand that we weren't Catholic, so I didn't have that deep rooted, religious. I liked it for what it was, but it was I didn't feel any guilt when we didn't go, or after that, and people were like, "Oh, this is our church home," and I was like, "We don't go to church." People kind of jumped back, like I didn't feel that shame or embarrassment because that was never a thing for us. But a few here and there in my family practice organized religion, and I did for a little bit as an adult, because again, I wasn't made to do it. So sometimes I just think, oh, you're going through all this bad stuff because so you go there and you see what it is, and it's something. You know what I mean? I won't say it's nothing, but I saw what it was, and I tried one or two things, and after that, I'm not a person that needs to do the same thing over and over to figure it out, to figure out the pattern. So after one or two times, going to Baptist churches, then going to studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, I don't have anything bad to say about it. I like it for who it's for, but it's not for me.
I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the conclusions that I came to when I did step away from the church. It's been about 12 years now that I have not traditionally served and worshiped like I did when I was a child. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I learned was that I don't have anything bad to say about the church either. Mm-hmm. Church actually saved my life because of what was happening and what was going on at the time in my life. So for that, I'll always be grateful. And I think that the church should be who needs it.
Right.
So it's like the hospital. If you're sick, you go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Serves as a catalyst almost. It can get you from here to there. And if it's for you to stay there, that's fine. But it wasn't for me. It definitely just brought me somewhere and helped me figure some things out. And I appreciate it for that. That's
right. And I agree with you. I feel the exact same way. Yeah. However, I also have another view about the church. Mm-hmm. If you have been inside that building for 30 years and you are still sick, something is certainly wrong with you.
Right.
That you have sat under that for that long, and you still need somebody to tell you how to behave,
right,
what to think, how to act, then there's a deficit with you.
Right.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with the church.
And it's funny that you say that, because that's one of the things that I have written here. Because when I think of people, kind of like what you both are saying. So let me go back to what my upbringing was. So my parents never actually stressed me and my sister going to church, but we did. But the thing is, they didn't. So they were sending us to church, but they weren't going. I think partially, I never really had this conversation with them. I might ask them one day, but I think partially because they had to work and make sure that, of course, me and my sister, were taken care of. So they were out there busting their ass, but make sure we went to church. However, I don't think that's always the case. I think, I know now as an adult kind of why they didn't, or why they didn't go to church. And I know they were sending us, I think partially because of, when they were growing up, they grew up and, their parents had them go to church. And then, my grandparents' parents, so it was almost like you guys said, that tradition being passed down. So after a while, it's like you're going just because you're told to go. Almost like where some people, when they graduate high school, they go to college because they're told that's the next step, what to do, but they don't really have a mind frame of they don't have their own thoughts of why they're even doing it. They're just doing, they're basically going through the routine of it. And that's how I actually felt when we were kids, kind of going to church, because I did always believe in the higher power. I'll come back to the next thing I was going to say, but I did believe in the higher power, like you said, Roz. You say seeked it. No, I know it's not seeked it. You sought after God in your own way, outside of the physical building that people call a church or a synagogue or a mosque or whatever that particular entity is that people practice their belief in. So it's like we were going to this church, and I was just like, I'm not getting anything from it. And I think I've always been like an analytical person as even a kid, and it was like being there, I didn't even know why we were even going. So after a while, I think me and my sister just told them like we didn't want to go, and they were like, okay. It wasn't even like a no argument or anything, because it's
no debate.
No, it's just like, okay.
Which I think is wonderful, because that's another thing that is damaging to us when it comes to organized religion, because we don't get to choose. Mm-hmm. It's chosen for us. Mm-hmm. And I think that even children should have a voice as to what they want to believe or not believe. They are human beings. There may be children, but they're still human beings, and they have free will. And it's amazing to me how believers, I call them believers, I don't use the Christianity thing, I think it's bogus. That is a man-made thing. It has nothing to do with God. I think that what we do to children in that space, it's a disservice, because they really never develop into who they really are. It's pushed onto them, and they have to unravel all of that. It's like pulling back the onion. There's so many layers that they'll have to pull back from all of that foolishness, from that whole church religion thing, and I don't like it. I think it's a disservice.
That is the part that gets me, because like I said, I never really just have anything bad to say about it, because I feel like that's why you have to have that relationship with yourself to figure out what works for you. But that's another thing. But with that, it teaches you to depend on something, and you're never sure, because you always got to check back with something other than you. And so you start wondering, well, if this is right, and if I'm supposed to be this, why am I not naturally this? This seems like a struggle.
Right. Oh my God, that's amazing that you would say that. And it also alleviates accountability.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's right here.
I had a conversation with one of my cousins, and I was just visiting, so it's one of those things like, dang, I wish I could talk to you again about this. But he kept saying that the bad things that he does is because of the devil.
Yes. Oh God.
And so I understood what he was trying to say, but it was like everything he was saying, it was just, and that's why it's you. You know what I mean? Every time he would say something, it was like, dang, that's crazy that all you got to do is like flip this switch, and then when you see who that devil is, now you can defeat it. But this elusive devil that keep getting away from you, and he's so tricky. He really not that tricky. You smarter. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He right there. But,
to me, even like by you saying that, I even think about when people, when they say stuff like, well, it's because I didn't have a father in my home is why I'm like this.
Yeah.
And they keep saying that, and you continue to be like that. But once you have consciously have pointed out what the issue is, if you continue to go down that path, like you said, at that point it's on you. Exactly. So if I say the devil made me do this, but you knew when you, let's say that me holding this phone, I'm saying it's the devil, right? But you always keep going to the same space where that phone is located,
right, and
you still pick up the phone.
Right. So
at what point, accountability, at what point, okay, is it not the devil's fault? But then if you're a churchgoer, or you're saying that you're trying to be with your God, right now, by you keep saying the devil making me do it, okay, now whose side are you on? According to that,
because he's strong. Like, it's a strong ass devil. And that goes back to what Ms. Rosalind said about when you know better, you do better. So why you know better and you still operating the way it was before you knew better? Well, you know what I mean? You don't. That's insanity when you keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So you know it does not work. Why won't you try this?
Because they're comfortable.
Yeah,
comfortable, settled.
Easier. They're comfortable, and it's easier to say, "Oh, that ain't nothing but the devil." No, that's you.
Right.
You are the devil.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's two of us in here.
Right.
Everybody, there's two of us in here, and I mean, I know it sounds cliche-ish, but which one you feed is the one that's gonna live.
Right.
The one that starve is the one that's gonna die.
Right.
So if you feed the good nature of yourself, then you'll produce good.
Right.
But if you feed the ugly, bad in nature thing, that's what's going to manifest in the earth.
Right.
Right.
Which is accountability.
Is accountability.
Yeah, it may sound cliche, but it's tried and true. That's the thing. You know, people say all type of sayings, you know, reach for the stars and you can do anything you want. But then because of the choices you're making, your choice is to keep that tradition up and keep in that cycle, and that hamster wheel, not going anywhere. Well, that's why you can't reach the stars like you said you could, because you're saying, you know, I can do anything, but you're not allowing yourself to do anything because you keep giving your power to something.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And also, you can have a fall guy too.
Yes, exactly. People do stuff, and then they say they know they're not supposed to do it, and the Lord forgive me, blah blah blah. And they do it again, and they do it again, and they do it again. Oh, because He never stops forgiving. Well, damn, you ain't learning nothing. You know what I mean?
And that was my thing too. Like, even when they would say that, so you're saying, because there's always two things that I always would. There's a whole bunch of stuff I'd battle with, but like two things that people always say: you're on this planet to serve your God. Okay, but then if you're saying our Creator put us here only to serve Him, if that was the point, then He would have just made us robots, essentially, right?
Right.
Correct.
But He put us here, you know, I say to live in harmony so we can live and exist. Mm-hmm. And then when you die, then this so and so, this is what happens, right? Yeah. So, what did I say right before that?
Didn't make us robots.
Right. But y'all saying like, because what sparked all that made me think of, y'all mentioned earlier like a catalyst, but then I was like, on the flip side, there's a crutch. So people can use that catalyst to do better. But some people also, then they just keep saying it's a catalyst, but then it just goes to a crutch.
So basically what you just said is it is what you make it. It can be a catalyst or a crutch. It depends on how you use it.
Right.
And so that's the part you can't blame on the church deceiving people and stuff like that, because everything is what you make it. And so if you refuse to see where you keeping yourself in this cycle, you don't get to blame the church, you don't get to blame the devil, you don't get to blame the priest, stuff like that. Because look how everything else moved in your life. Even this. Because you gave it power, now it has the power.
Right.
Before you knew it, didn't have any power.
Right. And what's interesting for me, because I am, I won't say I'm a Bible scholar, but I have studied the Bible intensely over years. And from my experience, a whole lot of it is true.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
A lot of it is true for me, and there are just some basic foundational principles that I live by.
Right.
And it's found in the Bible. So I would never dismiss the Bible.
Right.
That is a basic guide for foundational principles. That's what it is. Okay. So in the Bible, it's clear about the power to choose.
Right.
Every single day we get to choose. Positively, negatively. Your choice. And you will eat the fruit thereof.
Right.
That's fact. Don't blame me, blame it. I'm just a messenger.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and most people make choices every single day. And they want to throw it on something or someone else, as you said, the catalyst or
the crutch.
The crutch. Which one you going to choose?
Right. Which one you going to choose?
Which one you going to choose? Because it says it. Choose you this day.
Exactly. That's the thing. If you're using the Bible correctly, it tells you exactly what I'm trying to tell you. You know, exactly what we're saying right now. It tells you. The true point is it doesn't really withhold things. It's the people that withhold things. It's because, you know, back in the day when only the priest could have a copy of the Bible, and that copy was in Latin, you know what I mean? And he had to tell you what it said. And now that it's been translated and you can read it for yourself, you won't.
Right, because we've been conditioned to be lazy. We want someone to give us everything. Again, the Bible says to study to show yourself approved. Come on, it says exactly what it says.
Right.
If you're going to wait for somebody to give you what you need, they could tell you anything.
Right, exactly.
How do you know? So you're going by hearsay. It's not a real experience. Because you didn't seek it for yourself. Just like back when slavery was going on, they couldn't read and write. So the slave master read the Bible to them and told them that they needed to obey their slave masters. Really?
And that's why I feel like how there's different testaments and these different things, because you got, like you're saying, if you think of the original, the core, the true Bible, right? Like you're saying, those have the basic principles and foundations on how you can live and exist. But then it's like, I feel like even some of the stories in there aren't meant to be true or false. The stories have morals to them. So it's almost like when you hear folk tales or different things, that's what you should be listening to. You're not fixating on the names and the characters in the book. That's not the point. But I feel that's what happens, and people get they hang on to those different names, and now they're starting to become lost in what they're actually reading. And if you think about like when you're in school, like reading comprehension, I think sometimes when people are reading the Bible, they're missing the whole reading comprehension part, because they're just fixating on the characters, aka you could think of they're fixating on the pictures. They're looking at a picture book and they're looking at the pictures and the colors, but okay, what's the symbolism of these pictures and these colors? But people aren't looking at that. So I think that's where well, just not even like with Christianity, but a lot of religious books people get lost in, because they're not even they're not really taking the time to understand, because like you're saying, they're already being fed certain information already, so they're just sticking with that. And then so when they read that same thing, they're reading it in the perception of the person who told them what that paragraph was about. But it's like, no, you need to understand and comprehend it for yourself.
That is correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
Oh, I was 2 points that y'all made. Devin, you said about how it's telling us to all work together, and then Ms. Rosalind, you said about earlier we were speaking of on a different subject, but we talked about that division, creating division, and so we get so caught up in arguing on whether Noah actually built the ark or not. You know what I mean? If it was a real boat, and did he have 2 mosquitoes or not? You know what I mean? And you know, or whether it was Jehovah, Allah, or was it Buddha? You know what I mean? Start arguing about things like that, and you keep missing the point.
The entire point, exactly, because
go ahead.
We get so caught up on technicalities.
Right.
You know, it just behooves me that somebody had. Nobody's politically correct. Let's just be clear.
Right.
You were there. You were not there. This is a story. It's just what it is. It's a story. You take from the story what is befitting for you, and you throw the rest of it away. Right. There really isn't a need for an argument. But for the sake of argument, we want to argue about it. You know?
Right.
And it's silly. It's silly across. It really is silly, and it just perpetuates that negative stereotype, that negative behavior in our communities.
And that's the devil.
That's the devil, right?
That's the devil.
Yes.
But yeah, it's funny because, like you said, you'll argue all these points, but you won't agree that no matter whether it was Buddha, Jehovah, Jesus, whichever one it was, can we all agree that they wouldn't be happy about this? You know what I mean? So now we're sitting there arguing, and all of them said, we can all agree that they at least said, don't do this.
Right.
But we're gonna do it in their name. Like I don't know. Sometimes humans stupid. You know what I mean? It's like, dang, that's crazy.
I think there was a quote by I think it was I don't think it was the Buddha. I think it was Gandhi, and he said, "I like your Jesus, but I don't like his followers."
And I've heard that quote. I don't remember who. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I thought that was the most profound quote that I have heard in a very long time. Because if I'll just say Christians, if we are the followers of the Christ, we go against every principle that he stood for.
Mm-hmm.
How can you follow somebody that you don't even follow the basic foundational principles that he said? Right. How?
Right. You don't even know him. How you follow him?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But then even that, Christ is Jesus Christ, correct? So then you form a religion called Christianity based off of Jesus Christ. But the thing is, then we say, but we need to follow God. So essentially, we're not even supposed to even be listening to Jesus Christ. But then we say, and this what always got me too, it was like, well, he's the son of God, but then we're all God's children. So what makes him more special than me?
He see here, and that's the part right there. He never said that he was special.
And that's the thing, exactly.
That he was special.
Uh-huh.
His only job was to come here to manifest what we're supposed to do right here and right now as sons and daughters of the Most High.
Right.
It was just the example. That's
you know what it reminds me of? Y'all hear Haile Selassie? You hear the Rasta say it all the time. So Haile Selassie was a king of Ethiopia. And he went to like Jamaica on like several trips and kind of helped them or whatever. But some of the Rastas idolized him, kind of like what they did with Jesus, because Haile Selassie, he wasn't really even for, Rastafarianism. Like he actually, if I'm not mistaken, was more so against that. He wanted to help the peoples in Jamaica and help black people or whatever, because some Ethiopians were also there, whatever. But they put him on that pedestal, but that wasn't what he was about, So it's like the same thing like with Jesus. People put him on this pedestal, but he was just a good dude. What I'm saying? Like he was a good dude. Yeah, he was a carpenter. He helped some people. And he might have actually had, ancient traditions of knowing how to heal people naturally. And he probably did those kinds of things. And then y'all made him become more. And he's like, no, that's not what I am.
That's why you saw him with the thieves and the prostitutes.
Right.
Because he was regular plain old folk. It's us that made him to be something that he was not. And we've carried that on, and we've fooled people into believing that you have to be this perfect being, and you really don't. Right. Just follow the basic principles and you'll be all right.
Right.
Perfection is a perception made in the I forgot my whole saying that I said, but basically the word perfect is made by man. So I always say nothing is perfect, because the word perfect means flawless, right? The word flaw is opinion. So I can say your bracelet has a flaw in it, but you're like, I don't see a flaw. But that's my opinion, because I don't like your bracelet. But that's my opinion. But I could say it's perfect. My bracelet is perfect, and you're like, no, because it has that. So now we're going back and forth with opinions. So I
guess your bracelet is perfect for you.
For you, and that's the thing, right? It's perfect for you, right. But it's not. Everything can have a flaw, because that's all opinion.
Right, and everything does have a flaw. This is an imperfect world. This world is dark. Yeah. How can you have a perfection in darkness? You can't. I mean, you can from your myopic point of view. However, I don't think that it's valid and authentic. It can't be.
No. It's like that balance too, where like the whole thing, good versus evil
doesn't exist.
Right.
Doesn't exist. Just like heaven and hell. It's a contradiction for me today. How can a loving God who says he loves us, and because we don't do a certain thing, then we're going to to hell,
right,
to suffer forever and ever. And I'm like, you're not gonna make.
When did God and the devil start working together? I hate him.
You're right.
But if you don't listen to me, I will send you to him. What? My child that I love, you know? I'm gonna send you to the devil.
I mean, and I guess that's part of the religion thing that, you know, was a turnoff for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once I became conscious about certain things and I started to grow in my own self, I'm like, I can't continue to believe this stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a sheer contradiction to what I know.
Right.
And I can't in good conscience continue on this trajectory and do this willingly, because then I will be doing it willingly.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to teach that to other people, because let me just share something with you. In these 12 years that I've not traditionally gone to a building to worship,
mm-hmm.
that's what I stopped. I stopped that part. But everything else, I seek God, I pray, I fast, I still do all of the basic principles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I just don't worship in the same way that I did before.
Right.
And I remember in my spiritual walk in the church, it said, and I'll use the tithe because that's a huge thing in the in African community, the tithe. I used to hear a blessed 90 is better than a cursed 100. And in my mind, I'm like, so the God that said he loves me and the cattle upon 1,000 hills is mine and he'll meet my every need will curse my 100 because I didn't give him 10? So he needs my money? I couldn't believe that anymore. So I haven't given a traditional tithe in 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
I give, but it's not in the traditional sense.
Right.
I will admit right here that I make more money today than I ever did when I was given the traditional tithe.
Mm-hmm.
So I have just collapsed that lie about the tithe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If that's the truth, and we're talking the truth,
Right.
if me giving 10% of my earnings was contingent on me being blessed,
Mm-hmm.
then I shouldn't be blessed, because I make 3 folds more money than I did when I gave the traditional tithe.
Right. And then here, I honestly never tied it. That was just one of those things that it wasn't for me. And then when I did start studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't pass around a collection plate. You know, you can donate in the back. So that was one of my experiments. Let me not donate and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I was fine. See, who gave power to that, that's why, because you did that. You put yourself in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I appreciate it, like when, because I've always had my standpoints with different religions, but like when him and I would have conversations about like the Jehovah's Witnesses, I would actually appreciate some of the things that I would hear from it versus what I'll say the more traditional Christianity, because it seemed like they were closer to the core of what it should be. Like they're not celebrating all these different things that actually contradict everything. Like even the tithes thing is like a lot of that is extra stuff that doesn't make any sense. And that was another reason why I stopped wanting to go to the church that we did when we were kids. Because you can go back to that area now. I'm not going to call it the name of the church, but it's in Dallas. I almost wanted to just because I'm like that sometimes. Want to say everything like the address and the area without saying the name. But anyways, it's this church in Dallas that when we were going there, it was really small. But you go there now, it's a big size church. And the messed up thing about it is the community around it doesn't equate to what the church has. So it's like, how is all your people around the church poor, but the church is growing? So it's like, how does that work out? And then you got mega churches and stuff like that all around the places, but you look at the communities that they're either in or close to, it's like the church should have never gotten that big
ever.
Like if it's that much money, being poured around, that needs to be going into the community. Because if you empower your community, then the church will become empowered too, because more people will be in financial situations where they can help other people who go to the church and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, how is this church growing, but the people around it aren't growing?
Well, let me say this, and I'll get in trouble a lot because I kind of tell the gut belly truth about some things, and I pose questions for my Christian brothers and sisters. If you go back and study the life of the Christ, can somebody tell me the name of his church and what religion that he represented?
Right.
True.
So again, if we are following the Christ, he never had a building, it never had a name, and he never represented a religion.
So essentially, what was the first religion?
Right.
Hello.
And I never even thought about it like that. I mean, in the back of my mind, I probably did, but like when you said it like that, I'm like, yeah, what was he practicing?
Nothing. He never represented any denomination, and there were no buildings. He preached in the street.
Right.
So where is the concept, or where did it come from? The church.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that concept come from? And how did we get stuck there? Because we are stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I won't go back there, because God is not even there.
Right. Yeah.
The Bible is clear. It speaks about the great fallout of the church.
Right. Yes.
We are living.
That's another thing. If you know anything about the Bible and that's what you're going to church to study, you should see exactly what's going on, because this is what it was talking about. And a lot of times when in the Bible, when judgment was passed, it was passed on God's people, the church.
First.
Yes.
Say it.
And so while you out here, you looking, because they don't do this and they don't come down to the church and they don't help pastor is doing exactly what the Bible said he was going to do, and you helping him, and you supposed to know better because you got the Bible. It was one thing when you didn't have it, and that's when you can say that you were being deceived. But now that you have it, and all you have to do is open it up, and you choose not to, now you actually are part of it. You done jumped on past the bandwagon, and you doing his work and not the Lord's work, like you say. So you got a big hand in everything, all that judgment that's going to be passed and everything they say about Revelations. You better get ready and stop worrying about me.
Correct.
You got to answer to your God.
You're answering now, because here's the thing. You don't have to die to live with the consequences of your choices and decisions.
Right, exactly.
That goes back to that heaven and hell that people keep thinking they're going to be thrown in later. You're in it right now.
Right.
And see, and that's why, like, I've had friends and people I've known who I think went to church because of stuff they've done, right? Thinking that just by going to church alone was automatically going to correct their sins, or automatically turn their life around. You hear people like, yeah, I went to church and it turned my life around. And like we said earlier, like, sometimes that does help people, but then kind of going back to what we said, the catalyst to the crutch or whatever. But it's like, yeah, but you don't necessarily have to go to church to become a better person. If you know what you're doing is wrong, then that's where you start to correct and fix the problems. But yes, you need to start your own spiritual journey, or your own journey to start getting better, and then go to church. If you feel like the people at the church are going to be the ones that are going to help you, become better or whatever. Okay, I get that. But just going there after you did whatever you did that you're considering that was like so horrific, and going there just thinking that you enter the church building like you're just going. Because me personally, and sometimes I hate feeling this way, but like when I've gone to churches after I stopped going, but like when I go into churches, I always feel a weird energy, like I don't belong in there. And churches are supposed to be like the most welcoming places. I will say there's been like one church that I went to in Dallas area, and I was like, okay, it seems like the people in here are actually genuinely in here because they just want to, I'm like, cool. I'm like, I'm still not for it in that manner, but I respect how, the people, they're not trying to force you to be in there. They're not trying to force your hand. They had short services, and that was the thing that got me too. It was like a lot of little stuff like that, but like We shouldn't be in here for 4 hours.
No.
And if we are, think about when you go to college and you take an English class or whatever, you're not taking an English class for the rest of your life, or a literature class, because once you've learned all the concepts, everything in it, you own it now. You're in it. So it's like, why do you feel that you have to go to church every Sunday and look at the same book? You should have been already read the book. And if you already read it, maybe you have to read it a few times because it's a lot, but once you read it and understand it, you don't necessarily ever have to go back to it, unless maybe you're like, oh yeah, remember we said this in the book? Oh yeah, check this out. Oh yeah, I remember that. But you don't have to keep it with you because you already have embodied.
You know it. Yeah, you know it. And I think at different phases in our lives, we go back and revisit. I know I do. And I may have read something 2 years ago and got a completely different concept from it.
As you grow, your mind grows too.
That is correct. So for me, and like I was just kind of expounding on what you said, if you need to do this every single Sunday for 30 years, then there's a deficit with you somewhere because you're not retaining the information. But I don't think that that's what it is at all. I think it's become a fad.
Yeah. For
people, to go to church, to say that they belong to a specific ministry, and that and the third. And a lot of people use it as networking opportunities.
Yeah.
Everybody that's going to that church isn't going for the same reason. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the church, We go find me a man or a woman or whatever, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in these churches today. And that's why you hear about all the scandals as well that's going on, because anything that's not pure is going to be exposed.
Right.
I don't care who you are.
Right.
So just be prepared. And for me, I think that, again, this God that we serve, I think the higher power is powerful. And I think that he gives each and every one of us free will.
Right.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to actually take it back to something you said about how he didn't make us robots. He, or whatever it is, didn't make us robots. But if you notice, animals do exactly what animals do and nothing more. You know what I mean? We were the beings given that choice, that freedom, to create things, to do our own thing, to, to get together and do even bigger things. And if it were just, we were given that freedom and we don't use it.
Because we don't know that we have the power. Nobody told us that we were conscious creators.
Right.
Nobody told us that we had the ability to create. And we are. If we're made, and this is the Bible, I'll quote the Bible. It said that we're made in the image of Christ.
Right.
Christ was the ultimate creator. If we're made in his image, then we're also created.
Exactly. People make it seem like it's blasphemy if you say that you're a God or you're a creator. It's like, no, this is, like you said, if we're made in his image, then I'm the same. I'm not claiming to be the absolute. I'm not claiming to be the most powerful. But, and that was the thing, like I used to debate with some people about, because you got what's called monotheistic and polytheistic. But essentially, they're the same, but people are because people are like, oh, you believe in multiple gods, but it's like for the monotheistic people, they believe in angels and saints and stuff, which are God-like beings. So if they really listen to both sides, people who believe in multiple gods, they still have a hierarchy of the ultimate God, but you have a lot of powerful individuals. You may call it a saint over here, an angel over here. You may call this one the God of water, but it's still, so when you're on the water, you'd be like, oh, these angels blessed me, I could have drowned. Well, this people over here, they just say it's the God of water, but you're like, no, it's not a God.
Right.
They have God-like powers. It's the same thing.
But essentially, we are the little G's.
Right.
We
I like that.
And he's the big G or she. It doesn't have a gender, and that's another thing that is troubling for me as well. We don't know what gender the higher power is, but we've been conditioned to call it he.
Right.
You know, it could very well be a she because the
I mean, you think about it, it makes more sense.
Absolutely. Think about it.
Right. Who are the ultimate creators on this planet? Who are giving birth to children? It ain't me.
Exactly. Yes.
But then to me it goes back to, as humans, we want to be superior all the time. So it really doesn't even matter if it's a he or a she. We shouldn't even be focusing on that. But we have to keep, and I think, and sometimes I hate to say it because I don't want to step on people's foot, but I feel religion was actually designed as a superiority thing. Because
a hierarchy.
Y'all mentioned earlier, one of y'all chosen for us, like when you mentioned being slaves. I remember when I worked at this company, we were doing like a Black History Month thing, and I was already annoyed with it. And, you know, all the black people was like, so the company said, we can't, you know, basically say God and, you know, have too many religious things because we're at a company where, you know, multiple religions. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so, but some of the other black people, my other coworkers, they were upset because they couldn't. They were like, you know what, back in our day, God is what helped us get us through. And I had to hold my tongue because I'm like, this ain't really the time and place. But right. I'm like, but y'all don't understand, our true religion, our true beliefs was actually stolen from us. Right. So what we're doing and what our ancestors during slavery, and the fact of the matter is, most of our ancestors that were like in the Underground Railroad and all that, they weren't following Christianity.
That's not the thing.
At all.
But it's a small few, maybe like you saying, the people who were on the plantation, maybe they were, but the majority of them weren't. Especially if you think of how they even traveled. Just looking at, you know, the common, everybody knows Harriet Tubman and following the stars and all that. That would be astrology. Yeah. And that contradicts all the religion. So
let me tell you what I discovered after research, and I've been doing research since 1995 on the end times, so I'm well versed in this particular arena. There's 12 zodiacs, and in the Old Testament, it's called the 12 tribes of Judah. What do you think the 12 tribes of Judah is?
Right, and also those 12 disciples.
12 disciples. 12 tribes of Judah, 12 breastplates of stones in the breastplate and the zodiac. Exactly. Now come on, there's symbolism there. But they told us that astrology was of the devil.
Exactly. And what's funny is if you go to numerology, with 13 being like a master number, there was the 12 disciples and Jesus being a 13. Also in astrology, Jesus is the sun, and then how does that go? If somebody know, help me with that one. I ain't gonna touch that one. I know. But all those parallels, like I would say, if all that is of the devil, then damn, this devil, like how God messed up and gave the devil that much power. He way too witty. You know what I mean? And he even outsmarted him in some kind of way, you know, apparently. Right. You know what I mean? Exactly. So it's funny because and this is when you start making choices. There was that one time when I started realizing that, but I wouldn't say it. Thought it in my head, I would hear things and I would be like, that kind of sound like, nah, don't say that. You know what I mean? Then I started saying it to me and not saying it to anybody else. But then when you know better, you do better. It would be a shame of me to sit there and hear you saying that. And I'm not telling you what you're saying is wrong, but I am telling you there are other perspectives, there are other stories that match that one.
Right.
That's just like this story. It's funny that if it's out the Bible and you say, you know, I tell you I have an issue, like, oh, that's just like Job, blah, blah, blah. But if I say, she was balancing, that remind me of my eye. People be like, who? You know, oh no, you know, I don't do that. Oh, well, see, that's why we can't talk, because you want to dominate. You want to be the superior. You want to be in control.
That's right.
They say you don't want to be God. You sure acting like God.
Right. You sure.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah, it's a superiority thing. It's funny you mentioned like Mayat and stuff, because I didn't really do like extensive research into like religion, but like when somebody tells me something, I go do research on that. So that's what kind of just like, and that's why I even talked about Rastafarianism, because I actually did do like a report on that in like high school or college or something, just to have a better understanding of it. And the thing is, because before I used to think they were closer to being Muslims because of the eating habits. But then as I was starting to research that, there's different kinds of Muslims.
Absolutely.
But then like with Rastafarianism, they are basically Christians. But just, again, a different spin on things. Because the same thing, they say Jah, but Jah, Jesus Christ. They don't see Jah or Jehovah, right? It's actually more Jehovah. So, but it's still, they're basically that same thing, but they're just saying some different words, different translation, different regions. So certain terminologies that they use but it's the same thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, just like when I first started college, when I went back to get my finish my undergrad, I had to take a religion class, and I was blown away at the symbolism of how the core foundation of each religion, and there's so many, I was blown away. Some of it I had never heard of before in my life. However, their approach to the Creator was the exact same way. They just carved out and named it's something else, and it's all of it was around the same time, and that's the thing that was concerning for me. So I'm like, okay, well, what's the truth? What is the truth? Because at this point, I'm in limbo. I'm out to lunch. Hey, listen.
It's funny you say that, and I think that's where some people become what people classify as atheists. And because it just means of no theist. And the thing is, people think atheist means devil. No, crazy. Atheist just means of no theist, which in theist really relates to religion. So essentially, anybody could be an atheist. It doesn't mean you don't believe in a god or a divine being. It just means that you're of no theist, of organized religion, basically.
That's correct.
But I feel like that's where some people, like when you say they were kind of in that limbo, they don't know what to do, then they start calling themselves atheists, and they're like, you know what, fuck religion, all that kind of stuff. But it's like, I get where you're lost, but now you just went to another place and you're just still the same lost. So, but I think that's where some people go a different route and start blaming everything on the devil at that point, and that's where that starts to spark. But it's confusing because, like you said, when you're taught different things, especially like for a lot of people who grew up in the church, like I actually another close friend of mine grew up Jehovah's Witness, and so once he got old enough to actually go start exploring stuff on his own, it almost reminds me of like where you always hear about like the teenagers who get from underneath their parents who've been like, was it super sheltered, and they go wild and out because they're just so much free. And that's how I felt like he did, because it was just like, well, there's all this other stuff, like there's so many other things and things that they kind of kept back from me, and this and that. It's like there's so much more to the world and life, and and that's why I always tell people you should travel, speak to different people, understand people's cultures, because
basically connect the dots, make connections, because that's another thing. Going back to that divisive nature, it always teaches that it's this and that's all there is.
Right.
Well, then that means people are right to be racist, because it doesn't allow for more than one. So somebody got to be supreme here. You know what I mean? So that's the truth.
And that's interesting. That's very interesting what you just said. Because I never really looked at it that way. And exposure is everything. We really need to be exposed to more than what is right here around the corner or whatever. We really need to travel to see how other people live. How other people do things. How much more free that they are, and if I can expound on that, I actually just relocated to Dallas from New Orleans. I've been here for 28 days, and it was important for me because I lived here before. I lived here in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able, and I had a distinct opportunity to leave the city of New Orleans, experience Dallas. This is a huge place. A little girl from right uptown, and that's all I saw and knew. And I came to this place, and I'm like, oh my God, people can work on their jobs. They can pay their rent. They can pay their car note insurance. And buy grocery. Where they do that?
Right, where they do that at? Yeah.
Where they do that at? Because I was never able to do that in New Orleans the first time. You know, so I was exposed to another level of life here in Dallas in the 90s, and I knew that there was more to life. So that was my goal, was to get back where it was going on, and it got it going on in Dallas. Let me just tell you.
That kind of going back to like what we're talking about. That I went to Dallas first before I got here in Austin, from New Orleans, and Dallas wasn't doing it for me. It wasn't anything about Dallas. It just wasn't much of a difference for me. It was like I could have worked and came home back in New Orleans, and I got out here, and I feel like rapid growth. But that just goes to show you everybody's path is different, and so why you're not getting results doing that thing, because that ain't your thing. You need to go find your thing. But here you are stuck on this thing, and you're in a cycle.
And that's, you don't grow by going in circles. You don't grow by being stuck. If you think of just a seed, if you have a seed that's in dust and that's not dirt, they're not going to grow. It's just going to be there. They might sprout a little something, and then now they're like, well, I sprouted something, so I'm good to go. No, you could be growing. You're supposed to be a tree. You're not supposed to be a little seed with a root sticking out, like so.
Absolutely. And for me, the sky is really the limit. You can do anything that your heart desires if you have the heart to do it. You have to have the heart for it, and most people kind of fall by the wayside because it's really not in their hearts, because they're followers. Most people are followers. It takes a special individual to be a leader.
Especially when you've been conditioned to be a follower.
Right.
That is absolutely correct. And that, my dear, is what religion is notorious for.
Yep.
Reproducing followers.
That's why, and that's what made me know that it wasn't for me, because it never left a bad taste in my mouth personally, Right. But I because I can see the bigger picture and see what it's doing to other people, can't be a part of it. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And that's kind of what the Bible tell you to do. But hey,
and like we all have been saying, like if it's working for you and you feeling fulfilled as an individual and a person, then by all means keep doing what you're doing in your life to be harvesting yourself. But it's like it's not for everybody. And I think the issue with some people who are too defensive of their religions, that they're also trying to push it on somebody. That's where sometimes I have a disconnect with some people, because it seems like every conversation we have, they're somehow trying to slide in their religion on me. But it's like, okay, let's just say God made everyone the same. The planet wouldn't flourish like this, because everybody would be the same. If I was just like you, and I always say that too about the balance of the world, just kind of going off subject, but not really. But when people talk about well, you want to work at McDonald's all your life? You eat at McDonald's, don't you? Okay. So somebody got to work there for you to go eat there. So if that's what this person want to do, then that's what somebody got to do. The something for everything to balance out.
It's a great job, but somebody got it.
Right.
And it's honorable.
Yes.
It's not a job. I think that sometimes that like you said, Devin, you have to do what's best for you. I think that the church, whoever it serves, let it serve you. Yes. But I don't think that it needs to be pushed down the throats of everybody. And it doesn't make them bad people.
Right.
they choose to reject your way to the Christ or to Buddha, or whatever your preference are, whatever. I think that everybody should respect everybody's space, minds, and perceptions and perspectives. Yeah. And we can live in harmony through agreeing to disagree. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a holy war and a complete fallout because we view things differently.
Right.
It takes enough maturity to do that, though.
Yes. Yeah. A word that's been coming up in a lot of my conversations recently is healthy. And so anything can be good for you, you know what I mean, if it's for you. But when it gets into, when it goes to an unhealthy level, then you may want to pump your brakes, no matter what it is.
Exactly. But most people, I find that is still unconscious, asleep. They don't even understand, nor do they know that it's unhealthy.
Right.
Because it's become their norm.
Mm-hmm. And even kind of be I guess I'm going to say antagonist, might not be the right word, for, I'll say people who talk the same way that we're talking. Because you'll have people who are on a more extreme level than where we're at, right? So they're on the defense of trying to basically destroy the positive thing that these person that is religious has. So it's like, well, okay, what makes you different than that? What you perceive of them when you're trying to destroy their happiness and what they got going on. So it's like for anybody, it's like you're saying, just respect people's beliefs and their religions and who they are, and we can all live in harmony instead of living in harm's way. Because essentially, at the end of the day, if I didn't tell you this is what I believe, we'd be right here talking. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, for the most part, I mean, there are people who have certain garments and things like that kind of not even necessarily project their religion, but projects their culture. Because like you'll see somebody that I hate saying Middle Eastern, but I'm just saying that for the sake of the point. But like Middle Eastern people might have certain things on, and you just assume that they're Muslims, right? But I actually work with a lady who would wear that kind of stuff, and she's actually a Christian. But but it's so then that's like, oh, okay, so that is not so much the religion, it's the culture behind it. So but people don't think that, so they'll be like, oh, look at that Muslim lady over there, or look at that Muslim over there. No, they're not even Muslim, they're Christian like you, and they believe the same thing you believe. And one of the coolest things I ever heard was I'm gonna say it like this intentionally, but I don't mean it in a negative way. A white redneck teacher I had who used to be a police officer in this backwoods town called Wiley, Texas. But but I'm just saying, like, he, like, out of like probably all the teachers there, like, I connected. Well, I didn't connect with him, but like I was like, I like you, because he was real and he talked country. Like, if you listen to him, like, you like, oh, you a redneck, right? Like, that would be your whole perception of him. But he said he actually read both the Bible and the Quran, and he said they're exactly the same except names. And I was like, that was the coolest shit to hear a white redneck teacher say that, because you never, that's like rare for somebody, you know what I'm saying, fitting that demographic, for the sake of the story. But like, that's like, I'm like, that's how you know there's good people out there. But it's like, for him to say that, and if he said that, that means he came, then he's an older guy, so like, what generation people is that his where he came from. So it's like, people just need to step out of their element just to see better things.
They're afraid though, that's just
because that's distilled from the religion as well, that fear.
Absolutely. They're boxed in and they're just, their brain, use your brain. I'm like, we're so smart. We're smart as a people. We're strong as a people. When are we going to break out of that conditioning in our minds and experience some things, because the world is your oyster. Do you know what the world has to offer you?
Right.
For real.
Right.
And you're missing your blessing every single day.
Yeah.
it's passing you by every single day because, I can't go over there, or I can't do that, or the Lord is going to punish me. Man, get the hell out of here with all that.
Or I let the Lord take the wheel. Like, first of all, you got to start. God will say, put certain signs and different things right in front of you, but when you don't act on them, that's where you start. But then they start, again, the accountability and all that, start blaming other people. But it's like the signs were there for you to be the better person that you could be, but you chose to just be like, well, I'm gonna let God handle it. No. God already told you what to do right here in this time. Right. But instead of you doing that, you were too scared to step past that threshold. Mm-hmm. So God was like, oh, come over here and let's do this. Okay. Well, I'm gonna let God take the wheel. God's like, no, I didn't tell. I don't even know what a car is.
I don't even know where you're going.
Right. I don't know where you're going.
Right. And that, my dear, is where you get that hating from.
Right.
Because you'll see somebody else being blessed because you didn't choose to, get your opportunity to do so. And then you looking like, well, who they think they are? What you could have been.
You know what? And I found
the great I am that you keep talking about.
I found myself in situations like that where I'm starting to feel some kind of negative way towards somebody who I feel is being successful. Then I'm like, wait a minute, like, why am I mad at them being happy and them, being able to move forward and stuff? Like, what kind of person am I? So I'm like, okay, let me look at my situation.
Exactly. What part of me is
okay. Because, honestly, me and I've told, we talked about this. Like, I've known different people who, in the same industry, like art and music, and I was right there with this person. Like, there's a dude, I can say his name because he's dope. There's a guy named Bobby Sessions, actually out from Dallas, who just got signed to Def Jam last year, and like I've been to his shows when he was doing local stuff underground. I've had CDs and stuff, back in the day. So I've seen him in the city and do his thing, and all that time I've been into music, but I've always been scared to really just start stepping out of my element. But then I'm seeing him, and it's like, dang, I was right there. Not saying, I'm not even trying to, I don't want nobody misconstruing saying me and Bobby Sessions was cooler than homeboys or something.
Right.
I know what you mean.
But I've been in same spaces that he's been at, and I've seen his growth. So when I heard he got signed to Def Jam, I was like, yeah, and by that time, I was past me being envious and pseudo jealous of people and their successes. Man, what did you do to try to get there? And I look at my career, I was like, no, I've hindered myself a lot of the way to where I'm at now. I'm like, okay, so
another perspective on that is, and I'm not directly blaming religion or anything like that, but back when I had friends around me, we were all doing the same thing on the music scene, but the way I thought and the way I moved because of what I thought and what I believed was actually making me move slowly. And so also watching people around me and just rooting for them, believing with everything in me, I already know you're gonna do what you do. I'm looking at you, you know what I mean? I don't have to wait 10 years from now because I already know you going where you're going. But I didn't have that same thing about myself because you're not taught that. You taught be humble, and you know what I mean. And don't think too big of yourself. Don't get ahead of yourself. And it's actually just the opposite. They go back to that name that I am, and then it's I am who I am, and they even Jehovah translates to I become what I need to become. Well, if you do. If that's right for this being, for the great I am, and that's who you following, then why you not becoming what you need to become to do what you need to do? Mm-hmm. Or it's the devil, not just
right. We know what it is, but it is what it is.
But yeah.
It's a shame. It's really a shame. It's really disheartening, and I think that these platforms is it's purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we really need to continue these levels of conversations and bring more people into this equation so that we can get a better understanding as to why we continue to do it that way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And not seek out other avenues and other ways of being, in this world, because it's so huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the world is your oyster. You can have it any way you want, without fear. It needs to be collapsed. That fear really does need to be collapsed. And I'm really committed to seeing that happen in the community, especially with, you youngsters, because y'all a little underneath me, still can work together. You know what I'm saying? I can bring this generation to your generation. You can bring your generation to my generation.
Right.
We can rub elbows and sharpen each other, because we need that.
Exactly. And that's why one reason I want to have conversations, this podcast, so like I said, different generations can have these open dialogue and communicate and be on the same plane. Because I know we need to wrap this up, but like I know I can talk to like my elders, like my grandparents and stuff, and they may not understand where I'm coming from with that, but you may be able to get it through the grandparents, right? But coming from a youngster, because of that generational gap, it's like they're not even hearing me, right? So it's like that's why like each generation needs to connect with the one right above, and they can all be like a conduit to get to where we need to be.
Absolutely. It's like a domino effect.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say that goes back to what we were saying about that God and the angels and things like that. If we supposed to be following whatever this is, let's build that and pass it on and and teach one just like it was done way back, whether it was the Bible, whatever it is. One thing we can agree with, it was always being handed down, but let's hand down truth and not those traditions.
Right, exactly. Truth, not the tradition. Yeah.
I have to agree with you, young man. I promise you. I have me a little second line right now. You can't see it.
Look, we all know about second line,
right?
Because we all from New Orleans, right. Off topic, and then I'm gonna wrap the show up. So, last week, my wife Tia and I, we went to a museum out here in Austin, and one of like the exhibits in there was like was these people from Vietnam, and the way that they did their funerals was second line. It wasn't exactly, but it was like the same. I was like, and that was just, it was heart touching, because it was just like different different demographics, different places, cultures, and then the cool thing is they actually got a brass band. Because I think they already identified how the cultures were similar in that manner. So they actually had like partially a brass band coupled with their band and ceremony. But like to see them moving, I was like, man, that is like, I mean, the chills now thinking about it. But it was just like, wow, like people need to see that kind of stuff, because while you're sitting here judging these cultures, like, man, like that was just amazing to see.
That's that God we looking for.
Exactly.
That thing that connect people on different sides of the world. You know what I mean? That's the proof. That's all the proof.
Exactly.
But exactly. That's touching.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm gonna have to check that out. I love the museums.
Yeah, I'll let y'all know off this, because they ain't paying me to promote them and stuff. But I'll let y'all know about it. Hopefully the exhibit will still be there. But thank y'all both for coming on. Again, my name is Devin from what? My name is Devin, aka Devin Boyd, lyrical instrumentalist. And I thank you both again, Rosalind, George, and Jay DaWarlock, for coming on to ConverStayShuns.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Devin, for having me.
Thank you.